It's not in the face! Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Hey, Not the Face with your host, John Nash, and your producer, me, Steffi Haynes. And today we're going to talk about something we've been promising for a while, but John has been trying to skirt the issue a little bit, but we are going to hold his feet to the fire today and talk about Fight Inc., the UFC documentary, the UFC produced documentary. We are also going to talk about Dana White's interview with Fox. But first, let's check in with John and see how he's been.
I'm good. Survived the 4th, which was the priority. So that's over.
How has that been for your lungs? Because I know that you have a lung issue that's got to hurt.
Oh, yeah. Terrible because the air quality just goes to the gutter out here in Los Angeles over not just for the 4th, but like the week before and then almost a half a week after. So severe poor air quality warnings all the way through Sunday night.
Ugh, yuck. All right. So you've been trying to avoid this for weeks now. Weeks you told me, Steph, I don't want to do this. It's UFC produced, but we got to do this. We got to look at it because I don't know how to break this to you, Steph. I didn't watch it. You totally watched it. You told me last week already that you watched it and that you hated it. But we got to talk about it because people have asked what you thought about it. So my first question to you was, what was your overall takeaway of Fight Inc.?
Well, besides the fact that it was pure PR, produced by the UFC with a guarantee there'd be nothing in it they didn't want you to see. Besides that, terrible fact, right? I did not care for it. The structure of it, the style, I didn't care for it. I didn't care that I thought it was like a lot of UFC stuff. There's too much smashing edits and too many cutaways to fans just freaking out for what seems to be no reason. Right. And the way that was laid out, I didn't care for that either. Just the kind of episodic events just happened because there was no real, they gave you a glimpse of the company, but I didn't get a sense that I had real insight. I will say though, it was well produced, sounded good, looked good. It was well edited the way they do it, but I don't care for that kind of that style where it's constant rock, constant quick cuts, constant, especially the shots. It's always a pet peeve with UFC stuff. They cut to the audience, and it's so cringeworthy. The way they make UFC fans look like they're just freaking out over nothing. Like, do people have a life? Is this the most magical moment of your life possible? Because that's what it seems like whenever they show you.
Yeah. It was very much an ode to the UFC, and more than that, an ode to Dana White. I mean to tell you, there was so much Dana White in there that I was, after the first episode, I'd had my fill, but I trudged onward. And I know that you did the same thing that I did. You watched the first episode and then you took several days to watch the next two. I did the same thing because I needed that break. Was that how you felt too?
Yeah. Truthfully, I just didn't. Normally I would never watch something like this. It's just nothing I've interested in. As you know, I watch a lot of stuff. I'm a big movie buff, so I watch a lot of movies, but this was, I'm not saying it's terrible. I can understand why people were entertained, why I enjoyed it, but it for me, I'm not a fan of the kind of the modern trend we have where documentaries and biographies and stuff are written with the input of the subject, because basically it's obvious it's the subject, it's their interpretation of what happened. It's not investigate a piece. It's not a third party impartially reporting what happens. It's the message. It's all controlled messaging. So that I just can't get past that. And that really makes it hard to watch, because as I'm watching, I'm like, this is just a constant commercial for the people that produced it, the UFC, Endeavor and the UFC.
It is definitely a large piece of UFC propaganda, no doubt. Now, who stood out to you the most among those featured prominently?
Well, I think the person they put the most focus on besides Dana White, I mean, it was his show. He's the star. He's still the star of the UFC, right? The person that got the biggest focus after him, I thought, was Hunter Campbell. So he kind of stood up because it's obvious they're positioning Hunter Campbell as the guy that kind of like filling what how we used to imagine Dana White, the guy that's getting all the deals done, the way they used to present Dana White as. He's now taken that spot in this. I don't know if it's true or not, because we don't know. We have no true. We don't have this was not a real look at the UFC. So I don't know if there's other people that negotiate. We always hear stories that Hunter Campbell and people talk about him being the guy as the point man, but there could be several other people involved and we just don't know about it. So, but I thought that was the one because it seemed like they were making a very big effort to give him more shine. After him, I mean, it was interesting that they gave the production team a lot of coverage. It seemed in some ways to make up for the fact that the Dana White took credit for all the production before. So they gave them, but the other one was the Lene Breckenridge, the PR, and it was somewhat impressed that she got as much time as she did, because she's running the PR, and it's like, are you trying to give away the secrets? You wouldn't want to know. If you're trying to do propaganda pieces, the UFC kind of is with this, you wouldn't want to tip your hand that you have someone doing PR that's manipulating the audience and put them front and center. So I found it kind of interesting that they made a big deal about her, how good she is. One thing I would say is, and this is again, she's a black female. Obviously, she's good at her job. The UFC is successful, but part of me wonders, purely from a production point of view, this sport that is generally, and this company that's generally viewed as very white, very male, was the idea to put her up in front chosen for that fact? That's something I'd like to know, actually, in production. Do they intentionally do that and choose her to be one of the front people? Otherwise, it was all going to be white males.
Yep. So when you were watching this, before we go further into the documentary, did you feel like you were watching an episode of Embedded?
Well, I don't watch Embedded. I got to be honest. I go way out of my way never to watch Embedded. And Embedded feels different because it's a vlog series. It has that kind of that they almost intentionally the little bit. Okay, I watched it. I've seen clips of it, but it seems more intentionally amateurish in some ways. Like, oh, look at this footage we captured. This felt much slicker. I wouldn't say it's a contender series. It reminds me more of like, what's that? 24 Hours. When they're trying to they have a crime murder case, they're following it.
Yes.
Or 48 hours, not 24.
48 yes. Hours. The first 48 or whatever.
First 48. It felt more like one of those shows, but with much more cranking hard music thrown in. So, so it had that feel to it. It's a much slicker property, I thought.
I had to laugh at the focus on Dana's morning routine, where he gets up, he goes straight to the gym because it was his idea to set up the gym right there in their offices and everything. And so he does like 20 hours in the gym, and then he goes to the sauna, and then he goes to cryotherapy, and then he goes to red light therapy. And I am thinking to myself, hey, this is Patrick Bateman stuff. His shower routine in American Psycho. He had that whole shower routine where it took him like 3 hours just to get ready. I feel like that was Dana White right there.
Yeah, I could see that comparison. I was just, I'm happy they had this insight, because otherwise I wouldn't know that Dana created everything.
Exactly.
He built this team to do this, that he got, installed this in everybody. And listen, he is the star. It's obvious he is, for the fan, especially the fan base they have now, he is the star of the UFC, and he has charisma for them and everything. But it is kind of amusing how not only does he take credit, but he's a guy that supposedly works nonstop. But his nonstop work apparently is him just walking up and agreeing to stuff that other people are doing.
Yeah, that's what it looked like to me too. Yes. Oh my goodness. I mean, the whole thing with Hunter Campbell, that we're going to get there. But first, let's stay with Lene Breckenridge for a moment, because she headed the team that handled the potential catastrophe of that railing that fell and injured some of the fans last year in Canada. So I want to know, what you thought of that whole sequence, because they dedicated about 3-4 minutes just to that sequence and how they handled it.
Well, I think it was chosen because, one, it's something different than normally happens that probably happened during the span. They can make it more dramatic that this event happened and show, look how nimble our crew is. Now, you could say on one hand, according to them, no one was really injured. We quickly moved them to better seats, shipped everything. Look how nimble the team is and able to move. One person got medical care from the UFC. See, look how generous they are. We give medical care. Now you could argue that maybe they gave medical care to protect themselves because it's sure. But the truth is, the UFC would not be liable probably in this situation. That's the arena, and so I found it very kind of interesting the way it presented, like it was a UFC problem they had to take care of. And truthfully, this is an arena problem. And so I thought that was my takeaway with that something happened in the arena that could be a problem for the arena, but for the UFC, it's like, hey, this is a great dramatic moment just so we could show to the audience just how nimble we are and how much we take care of our fans.
What do you think was the most egregious thing that was said in this doc? The most egregious falsehood that hit your ears when you heard it, you did a double take right there in your seat with nobody around but your cat. To access the bonus content of this episode, you must be a paid subscriber. To do that, go to heynottheface.substack.com and subscribe today.
Ow! Ow! Not the face! Ooh! Okay, the face!